you're part of the meeting.
Oh, right, all I've got is a flashing blue light on the front of the screen, so I wasn't sure if you could hear me, but I can hear you clearly, so that's good enough, and if you can hear me, that's all we need.
Yeah, definitely hear you. You're part of the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The meeting is now live.
Okay, thank you. I reckon we've got about 30 seconds to start. Okay, everybody, it's now 2 o'clock, and I welcome everybody to the 15th of February Staffordshire Police Fire and Crime Panel meeting. Welcome to everybody. If we can start the ball rolling, please, with apologies off Mandy.
We've received apologies from Mr. Darby, Mr. Walker and Councillor Gaskin, and for the benefit of anyone watching on webcast, those present at the moment are Councillors Adams, Edgler, Edwards, Holmes, Maxfield, Pearson, Sweeney and Sue Finney from the ETAP.
So just seven members, Matt?
Yes, at the moment, Chair.
Thank you. Any declarations of interest of anybody? I don't see anybody. Okay. Item number 3 is questions to the PSCC from members of the public. Have we got any, Mandy?
We have no questions for this meeting. We did receive one today, so that will be referred to your next meeting.
Okay, thank you. Item number 4 is a proposed fire and rescue budget and precept 21-22. Matthew, I think, is in now. Hopefully. Ah, Matthew, welcome.
Hello, Chairman. Are you all right?
Yeah, you're right on time because we've just come to your section. Are you going to lead off on it and David follow in? Is that the way you normally do it?
I would normally do it, but I've got absolutely no technology whatsoever. I need a hell of
I don't know if you can hear me, Matthew, but it's breaking up all over the place. So I think probably over to you, David, if you want to start the ball rolling.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And I've got a short presentation for the panel today, if that's okay, Chair. And hopefully you can all see that presentation on screen.
Certainly can.
Good. Right. Okay. So basically, I'm going to run through just a few slides, Chair, just to give the panel a flavour of the 4 papers that are in front of you today. So as we had with the presentation for policing, we've got the main budget and medium-term financial strategy report. We've got a reserve strategy report, a capital strategy report, and the treasury management report. So my presentation is really going to encompass a number of areas from those reports, but obviously primarily around the budget setting and the proposal for the level of precept for the year ahead. So as I say, Chair, I'm not going to cover all of the papers in all the detail. I'm just going to give a presentation around the main aspects of the papers and then take questions at the end, if that's okay. So just to kick off and just to provide some context, really, and again, this is just around a very similar story in many aspects to the story that I gave the panel when we were talking through policing. But basically, the spending review this year has been provided by the government in, as we are all aware, unique circumstances. And the primary aim of the government has really been to try and make sure that councils have been supported through the budget year and the immediate impacts really that are falling out, as part of the pandemic, and obviously to help and support recovery as we move forward and really just to support and maintain critical services for the end of this year and into the budget year. So I think the government are absolutely committed to providing some stability for next year, which I think hopefully that they've done, and you'll see as I go through my presentation. But I'll just finish off really at the end of my presentation, really just to focus on the fact that, you know, we have got significant uncertainty as we move into the medium term, and I'll talk through some of the proposals and the Service 2025 work that's been ongoing at the moment, so that I can demonstrate to the panel hopefully that the service is prepared for some of those challenges ahead. So I'm just going to talk briefly about the settlement, if that's okay, just to pick out one or two of the key aspects. So Chair and panel, you'll be aware, obviously this is the second year that we've got a single year settlement, and whilst, you know, in terms of the attempts that the government have made around making sure that we're in a good position as we move into next year, that does leave us with issues as we move into the medium term that I'm going to discuss with the panel. But importantly, the referendum limit has been set for the budget year, and it's set at 2%. So in terms of what that means for the Fire and Rescue Service, proposals that are put forward by the Commissioner, I'll go through in detail, but that's the Commissioner's putting forward a 1.99% or a 3 pence per week increase in the Bandy Council tax for the budget year. Now, importantly as well, and I've mentioned this before, Chair, it's important that the government have included the £1.7 million of the pensions grant into the settlement for 21-22, and we now believe that pension grant will be baselined, so it's going to be included within the core element of our settlement funding as we move into 22 and beyond. So we're hoping to see that as part of the next CSR. Because this was a 1 year all over again, the revenue support grant that is received by the authority has included a small inflationary increase. So that's the second year where the revenue support grant has been increased by a small inflationary element. As well, just to make sure the panel are aware, we've included the recommendation by the Chancellor that was made on the 25th of November. So we've included a public sector pay pause within the proposal that are put forward to you today. And then finally, I'm just going to talk through in a moment just around some of the support that's been given to the authority in order to compensate for some of the reductions in council tax, the deficits that we're seeing from council tax, and also the reduction in our council tax base. So for everybody, there are two key elements to the funding for the Fire and Rescue Authority. So firstly, we've got our settlement funding, and that's made up of three key areas. So I've already mentioned our revenue support grant. So 4.8 million is the settlement funding that we've been given. That's the final settlement funding, by the way, that's come through. So there's a marginal 0.5% increase in terms of an inflationary element included within that. But I just remind the panel, if that's okay, that this is the one area that the Fire and Rescue Authority have seen significant cuts over the last few years. So since 2012, that overall level of revenue support grant has reduced by 65% or 9 million during that period of time. Secondly, we receive a 1% share of local business rates, and we've now received the NNDR reports from the 9 billing authorities. So that data is included within the budget setting exercise. Now, it is a little bit more complicated this year because basically there are quite substantial deficits on the business rates received by the billing authorities, but that's being compensated for by a Section 31 grant that at the moment sits with the billing authorities, but a share of that will come back to the major precepting authorities during the year. So the mechanism around how we'll receive the cash for that is going to be a little bit different for the budget year, but we have got an estimate of 3.7 million included into the budget. And then finally, we also receive a top-up from the government, so there's a business rates top-up, and that's remained unchanged at £6.1 million for the last 2 years. So overall, our settlement funding that's included within the budget proposal is at 14.6 million. If I can just move on now to council tax, and if I can just signpost panel members, so there's a section in the budget report on pages 6 and 7. So just to give you a quick run through, a quick summary. So the budget assumes that the Commissioner, and the proposal that's been put forward today by the Commissioner, is for a council tax increase of 1.99%. So that's just below the 2% referendum limit that's been included within the settlement. So in terms of 1.99%, what does that mean? Well, that's an additional £1.54 for the typical Bandy council tax. So that's 3 pence per week, and it does raise an additional £500,000 in council tax for the budget year. So that takes the Bandy from current year 77.24 up to £78.78 for the budget year. So what's happened this year that I was talking about? So we have seen collection rates reduce in year. We've also seen the council tax base drop as well, because more households basically are claiming council tax support as a direct consequence of the coronavirus that we've seen over the last 12 months. Now, the good news is two elements. Firstly, there's a grant that's going to be received that covers off 75% of the collection fund deficit in year. So the overall deficit is around about 1.2 million. So there's £300,000 worth of deficit that's been spread over a 3-year period starting 21-22. Now, we've also, on top of that, seen a reduction of 1.2% in the council tax base. But we're going to get a grant from the government of circa 400,000 that's basically as compensation for that reduction in the council tax base. And then, Chairman, if I just signpost again on page 7 of the report, on the top of page 7, it does include a small table there that takes you through from the council tax requirement for the current year and demonstrates how that's reduced into the budget year 21-22, and you can see on that table there the impact of the reduced council tax base, the fact that we've moved from a surplus to a deficit on the collection fund, that's then mitigated or compensated for partly by the increase that the Commission has put forward of 1.99%. So if we can look at that, how that looks like in terms of the total budget, we can see overall the settlement funding, as I talked about, at 14.6 million, so 35% of the overall budget. And then on top of that, we've got the base precept of £27.4 million, so 65% of the overall funding for the authority, leading to a budget proposal that's in front of you today of £42 million. It's actually £41,977,000. Now, if I could just move on, Chairman, if I may, and just now talk about and just show you some numbers. And just so you can see how some of this impacts year on year. And I just want to pick out one or two of the key elements here, if I may. So you can see on this particular table how the pay costs have reduced year on year, and there's a couple of factors for that. But the key element really is the fact that we've actually got the staff who work for the Joint Emergency Transport Department, so our JETS team, who are based at Trentham. So the staff have now moved over from fire employment over to police employment. So we've got the staff costs moving out of pay costs and into supplies and services costs. So that's around about £600,000 in year. Also within our supplies and services costs, we've got some investment that's being made by the service, particularly around into IT, into investment into Office 365 and into our key system that we use, which is called Firewatch as well. So we have got some investment as we move forward. And then, Chairman, I'll just refer you to the income line. So you can see the income there has gone up by 681,000 in terms of general income, and part of that, or circa 400k of that, is the grant that's going to be received from government to compensate for a reduced council tax base. So if we look at the overall funding, you can see that in terms of the settlement funding there, you can see broadly a small downward movement in total, and then you can see the council tax dropping by just short of £400,000, which is to do with that overall reduction that I demonstrated to you, that's included on the top of page 7. So if I can just move on now and just talk briefly about the medium-term financial strategy, and I think this is quite important for the panel just to understand some of the assumptions that we're making as we move forward, because as I mentioned earlier, we have got a lot of uncertainty, so we're having to make certain assumptions around certain areas of our funding as we move forward. And what these assumptions are leading to is a gap in our funding of around about 1.7 million for 22-23, increasing to 2.9 million by 25-26. Now, some of the key areas of that reduction are firstly, we know that fire remains an unprotected department, and we're anticipating, as part of the comprehensive spending review for 21 for the end of this year, that we're going to start and see some reductions in our revenue support grant. Now, we've only included a modest reduction of 5% per year, but we believe that's a reasonable estimate for what we anticipate is coming as part of really the difficult position the government finances and the public sector finances are in as we move forward. Also, as well, we've got the impact of COVID. Now, we know we've got a reduced council tax base in year, and what happens is that council tax base, as sort of forecast by the billing authorities, will recover into the medium term, but it's going to recover slower, and the recovery is, the increase year on year is going to be a lot slower than we'd originally projected within our previous medium term financial strategy. We've also then got the ongoing issues around pension costs, and we know that the impact of the Sergeant and McLeod and the pension and the remedy that's going to be introduced for public sector pensions, and the impact will be significant for firefighter pensions. So what we've done is we've looked at the outstanding issues that are unresolved from the valuation that was done for the firefighter pension scheme in 2016. We also know the valuations being done for 2020, and then on top of that, we know that there's going to be the impact of moving quite a considerable amount of operational staff back into their legacy pension scheme. So there is going to be a cost there, and we're anticipating, and we've incorporated from 22-3 onwards a 5% increase in employer contribution rates as we move forward. And also, as well, I just mentioned really, as well, we have got some issues with pay within fire. We've still got some unresolved pay matters that go back a number of years that the panel be aware of. So we've put a 3% assumption in for next year, but we know that negotiations will be going on between the representative bodies and the local government association and the NJC around payables potentially in excess of that level. And then we've also got as well impact of fire protection post Grenfell, and also as well the impact of technology and ESN and the costs of that when it's finally implemented across the service. So if I just signpost as well the panel to the assumptions included in the medium-term financial strategy that are on page 13 of the budget report. So if I just move on, Chair, and just talk about the Service 2025. So the panel will all be aware of this. I've talked about this work before, but I think it's important to recognise that the service understand that we've got financial challenges ahead. We've been engaging with Matthew and with the Commissioner's Office around options for a pathway for delivery of changes as we move into the budget year and beyond that. And we've got around about £4 million worth of options that are being developed and are in various stages of development at the moment. And these cut across key areas of the service, being the structures and the way we operate, then moving into our response options and capability that we've got within the service. Importantly as well, the work that's been ongoing around the estate strategy across police and fire, and further collaboration opportunities that present themselves into the medium term. So we've got a number of key work streams that we're working through to make sure that we're prepared for those challenges ahead. So Chairman and panel, I'm going to summarise it, if I may, if that's okay. So I think it's really important we have got a budget position that's balanced that I'm presenting to you today. And why is it balanced? Well, that's a measure of the government support measures that have been put through for COVID. It's the preset proposal that's been put forward by the Commissioner, and of course the impact of the pay pause for next year. So that's really positive position for next year. And that includes a council tax proposal of 1.99% that I've talked through, and also the pay freeze for next year. Now, obviously, I just want to talk about obviously uncertainty, and although we have put some assumptions into our medium term, the thing that I want to get across to you, to the panel, really is the fact that it is very uncertain. A number of the assumptions that we're including in our medium term are estimates, and what we would like to do is hopefully see a CSR beyond 1 year for 22-3. We'd like to see some work going on with the Home Office and the Treasury to give us some more certainty, so that we're in a better position to plan as we move forward. But I want the panel just to be aware that we have got, through the work that we've been doing on Service 2025, just to reassure the panel that we are in a position where we are clearly thinking about the challenges that we know are ahead of us. So I'm just going to finish there, really, Chairman, and just to note some of the key recommendations for the panel. So firstly, for the panel to note the budget requirement of 41.977 million, which is included within Appendix 1 of the budget report, which includes the council tax requirement for 21-22 of 27,473, which is before the collection fund deficit is taken into account, and that's included on Appendix 6. Then for the panel to support the proposal to increase the 21-2 preset for the fire element of the council tax by 1.99% or £1.54, which is equivalent to 3 pence per week, an increase in the Bandy council tax from 78.78 from the current 77.24. And again, the detail of that is shown within Appendix 6 of the budget report. I'd also like the panel just to note the recommendation of the robustness of the budget as required by myself in terms of the adequacy of the proposed reserves as well that are incorporated within the report. And finally, really, just for the panel, just to note that obviously this panel is supported by the reserves, by the capital programme that's included within the capital strategy, the reserve strategy, and also the Treasury Management Report. So, Chairman, I'm going to leave it there and happy to take any questions from the panel. Thank you, Chair.
Chairman, I don't know whether you can hear me. I've been in and out and round and about the cyberspace universe, but I'll try and say I'm now on my mobile phone and mobile data because the local network is down. But so apologies for disappearing and coming back, but I'll try and play a slightly bigger part in the meeting if that's okay.
It's always lovely to hear from you, Matthew.
Thank you, Chairman.
If I can start the ball rolling, if I can, please, David. The collection fund, Appendix 5 and Appendix 4. Can you sort of do a sort of layman's description of what those both are? The shortage of council tax payments, basically. I think you're on meter at the moment, Dave, as well.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So Appendix 4. So, and I think this is, thank you for signposting that, because I think it's an important table, isn't it? Because I think if I could just refer the panel to the actual quantum of the numbers. So normally, Chair, we would see a surplus on the collection fund, and you can see that surplus last year was at £535,000. So obviously, making a sizable contribution to the funding for the Fire and Rescue Authority. But because of the impact of the pandemic, what we've seen is that overall level of debt. Well, we've moved from a surplus into a deficit of 67,078. So we've got a 600,000 switch year on year that we've seen because of the impact on the collection funds that's been seen by all 9 billing authorities during the difficult times of the last few months and the pandemic. And what you see on Appendix 5, Appendix 5 takes you through the tax base. So the tax base you can see there, again, normally we would see an average of around about a 1.5% increase in the tax base. So again, normally a good contributor to increasing the funding for the authority and the service. And of course, normally what goes in here is we see the building that goes on, the house building within Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent, increasing that council tax base. But because of the pandemic, because more people have been receiving council tax support during the year, so more people have found themselves in financial difficulties. We've actually seen now the council tax base retract down to 348,733, so a 1.2% reduction. But I think it's important to know this is the area where the government have given us the LCTS grant, or the local council tax support grant, which is basically a one-off payment to compensate for that reduction in year. So, as I say, there's some funding that's coming to help us next year, but my concern is how this plays out into future years.
Okay, thank you for that, David. Anne, you got a question?
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you, David, for that. I just wished I were an accountant, actually, when I read all these papers. It's absolutely. But on page 11, number 27, David, you talk about the Sergeant to McLeod case. Can you please explain why and how this is having such an impact on the pension scheme in Staffordshire? Although I do realise this is a national issue and not just appertaining to Staffordshire.
Of course, I would love to, and I'll try and do this as simply as I can. So basically, just for everybody's information, but just in terms of what happens. So this goes back to the reform of public sector pensions. So a number of public sector pensions were reformed in 2014. The fire and the police were reformed in 2015. So basically, new schemes were introduced. So, and I'll stick just to the fire scheme. So in 2015, the new pension scheme came in, and members were then transferred from their legacy pension schemes onto the new pension scheme. And then that transfer was done over a period of time, and it was done based upon your age and the amount of service that you'd done at that point in time. So different people were moved over to the new pension scheme at different times. So that could have meant that people had served the same length of time within the fire and rescue service, so they could have been there exactly the same time, joined at exactly the same time, but because of their age, could have been moved into the new pension scheme at a different time. So this was the case that was brought forward within the Sergeant case, and it was found to be age discriminatory. So, and I think so. What's happening now is basically the government are having to unpick everybody transferring into the new scheme. They're going to have to unpick it and transfer everybody back into the legacy scheme. So, of course, the new schemes were cheaper. So it's going to actually cost a significant amount of money to revert everybody back into the old scheme. And of course, what that will mean is is people moving back into their legacy schemes will mean potentially they may be able to be in a position where they can retire earlier. So it actually puts the workforce planning issue as well under stress as well across the public sector, because potentially more and more people, as they move back to their legacy scheme, will potentially be able to exit and retire earlier. So it's a bit of a mess, to be honest with you, and then the government are doing what they can to try and make sure that this is being done as quickly as possible. But it is a challenge. The consultation response came out on the 4th of February from government. So members are going to be given a deferred choice. So basically they won't have to choose between their current and their legacy benefits until they retire. But of course that means that we've got to keep in terms of the administration of the pension schemes, they've got to be kept in such a way so that all of the information is kept about members, so that when they retire, they can make the choice between their current scheme or their legacy pension scheme. So thank you for the question.
Sorry, David. Yeah, thank you for that. Chairman, I've just got one more question to ask, is that okay?
Yes, fine. There you go.
On page 13, number 39, talking about utilities now, are you tied into a specific contract, or can you look elsewhere to save money with utilities? Thank you.
Yes, so we can look elsewhere for our non-PFI2 sites, and I say that because our PFI2 sites are dealt with at the moment by the FM provider. But for our other sites, yeah, we're free generally to go to whatever provider is offering the best deal. But generally, we procure through the county council and through the contracts that are available for the county council, because they're generally the best value. So yes, but the answer to your question is yes, we can move and select where we go for the best value for money.
Thank you, David. Thank you for your answers.
Yeah, well done, David, on the pension one. I said to Anne you'd enjoy that one. Brian, back to you, please, Brian.
Yes, David. On page 24 of the appendix, it is appendix 10, I think. It's the details of special service charges. I just wondered if you could explain where that would be charged and for what reasons particularly.
Yeah, of course, Councillor. So what Appendix 10 sets out is really what our fees and charges are for the coming year, and for a number of the fees and charges, there's a small inflationary increase that's put on there, but there is some specific areas, and I'm just looking at the special service charges. There's 4 key areas there where. If we're asked for specific information or if we're asked to provide a service, then we do that service, but we charge for it. And to be honest, Council, I don't want you to think there's a massive amount of income coming into the service because of these areas. That relatively modest amounts, but
right.
You can see where we're asked to do fire investigation interviews, where that is chargeable, then we charge out £107 per hour. So it depends on the service, and these are, I say, relatively standard amounts that we just include and we just increase on an annual basis. But then also, you can see within section C, there's the charges that we make for our conference facilities. But of course, through the impact of the pandemic, then obviously we've not been letting our conference facilities out for the last year.
Right. It was just what I just wondered when they would be called out and have to pay for it rather than a normal call out for an appliance, for instance.
Yeah, these are specific requests, Councillor, about particular areas.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
So, David, that's not the fee for having a fire engine if your house is on fire, then?
No, it's not, Chair. No.
I think you could construe it at that, couldn't you, if you read it?
Apologies if that's not clear. No, it's not. There's no charge for a fire engine attending your property. No. Okay.
If we go on the capital part of it, David, I see Abbots Bromley still voting about.
So, Chairman, I can give you an update on that, and it is a good news update because we are very close, actually. In fact, we're pretty much starting the work at Abbots Bromley now. So hopefully the work will be concluded during the budget year. So we're relatively close, and I know you'll remember this from your role as the chair of the Fire Authority. So we did struggle for a while to get a project that was in line with the budget, but I'm pleased to say, Chair, that we've now got a scheme, a relatively modest scheme that's going to provide the additional female facilities, particularly that are required at Abbots Bromley, in line with the budget envelope that was set by the previous authority. So thank you, Chair.
Okay. And what is the budget envelope there, David?
So it's 417,000, Chair, is the total budget that's been set. And then if you remember that allocation came about because when we refinanced the PFI1 going back to 2016, that was the benefit that came back to the authority at the time. So, and that money we wanted to invest it back into the estate. So it was earmarked for Abbots Bromley. But it's just taken us a while to get the project to a point where we're actually going to start the work. But the good news is we are starting that work right now, Chair.
And what is the fire service getting for its money?
So importantly, I think it's fair to say that there's been some, Abbots Bromley is quite an old station, and what it was lacking was any dedicated or proper facilities for our female staff. Yep. I'm sure the panel will support me here that it's absolutely, it's not acceptable today that we haven't got proper dedicated facilities for our female staff. So we've whilst it's taken a while to get the investment ready, we needed to make sure that work was undertaken. But of course, as well, Chair, we've tidied up the station a little bit and making sure that it's a little bit more fit for purpose as we move forward.
Good, David. Thank you. Any more questions of anybody? Don't see any hands going up. Do you want to round up with anything, Matthew?
Chairman, I don't know. My screen has been frozen for some time, so whether you can hear me or not. In fact,
I can hear and see you, Matthew.
Dave, all I can see is David. Oh, really? Oh, marvellous. Oh, blimey. You've appeared, yeah. Chairman. So apologies for so ridiculous meeting. It drives me. And I don't know what you talked about because I couldn't hear most of it. But if there's any questions that, then I'm very, very happy to try and answer them if I can hear them.
I think David's covered everything off that we've asked. No, I think the sooner we get to in-person meetings again, I think the better. Personally, but that's my considered view. Okay. Any more questions for anybody, or are we all done? Yeah, everybody looks like they're done. I believe now we move into a side room or something while we can discuss this, and we leave you two, well, three gentlemen, in fact, sort of in the main room. Are we at that stage, Mandy?
Yes, Chair. I'm just waiting for IT to adjourn the meeting, okay, so that we stop broadcasting, and then I'll put the members of as soon as they confirm that we're live again. You can carry on, Chair. We are live again now, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Right, thank you, Matthew. We've had a discussion about your proposal, and it's unanimously supported. Okay, so the item.
Chair,
yeah, go on.
I was just going to say thank you. Very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, the recommendations are A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. I don't intend to read them all out, but you have our unanimous support on them. Okay.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Thanks, Chair.
Panel.
Okay. All right, man, don't need to say anything else, do I?
No, Chair, just onto the supplementary agenda.
Okay, so we now move to the supplementary agenda, which is the Fire and Rescue Service Safety Plan. Who's going to lead on this?
I'll ask Glyn to lead on this, and I will chip in because I've got none of the notes that I need in front of me.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thanks, Matthew. Thank you, Chairman. Members, this is the regular safety plan update. So the integrated risk management plan for the Fire and Rescue Service update as of Q3 of 2020-21. If you recall, a new IRMP, a new corporate safety plan, was signed off in 2020. So we are at the start of a 4-year programme, the last one having ended in 2020. And what this report gives you is an update to date against each of the 4 priority areas that have been identified. So just to run through what those are, and they're identified in 3.4 of the report: prevention and early intervention, protecting Staffordshire and its people, public confidence, and service reform. And section 4 of the report gives you a summarised position for performance against each of those 4 priority areas. I won't focus on the detail within those individual sections, but if you have any questions, then please ask them. What I would refer you to is the service reform agenda. So this is section 4.4 in the report. And this makes reference, amongst other things, to the September to November 2020 HMIC FRS COVID inspection. And HMIC FRS were looking across all fire and rescue services at what was working well in the response to COVID, how the fire sector and fire service was responding and dealing with the problems they face, and what changes they were likely to see as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. And we've attached the narrative letter that's been received from HMIC FRS in respect of the Staffordshire position. And you'll note in 4.4 of the report that HMIC FRS were particularly impressed with the preparations made and the additional support provided by the Fire and Rescue Service to local communities in Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent. So a very positive inspection outcome and a very positive narrative that's been received from the inspectorate. I'll stop there.
Chairman, if I may, can I just reinforce the extraordinary work that the Fire and Rescue Service have done during the pandemic, and that's been multifaceted. And I think I want to thank the service itself on behalf of the public, because they've kept the job going. They played a huge part in the vaccination regime, and also supporting people both internally to the service and externally. And I think I'd like that minuting our appreciation of that. I don't know whether anybody heard any of that, but
yeah, I think it came over, and I think the panel would endorse everything. Say, Matthew, on that one.
Great, thank you very much indeed.
I certainly do. Anyway.
Yeah, certainly.
I've got a number of points I want to make with you, Glenn. Are you ready to start now?
Yes, Chairman. Yes.
Okay.
David may well have some answers to these questions as well, I think.
Okay, I'm sure he's looking forward to it. Should we talk about the McLeod case again? Perhaps not now. First thing, when I was chairman of the Fire Authority, the Prince's Trust was the most wonderful thing that the fire service did, really, apart from putting fires out. It was just wonderful, really, and it's obviously taken a hit by COVID. Are plans in place when all this is over that it kicks back in to its previous sort of its previous state, basically? It will carry on.
Yes, they are, Chairman. Clearly, the community interest company that was established under the old Fire and Rescue Authority has been the delivery model for Prince's Trust work. That Prince's Trust work, as you would expect, has been on hold for some months now, with very limited ability to offer the services to young people that it had done before. But we have plans in place for that to restart, and we're looking at the community interest company model just to make sure that it's as effective as it can be in restarting that work.
Okay, thank you. Next thing, safe and well visits, which has always been a massive thing for the fire service. You know, prevention is better than cure and everything else. Can you give us an update on that, please?
Yes, Chairman, and David may well have more detail on this as well. So safe and well visits, again, have been impacted significantly by COVID. In recent months, they have dropped to a very, very low number. And what the service has been doing is been focusing very much on supporting the most vulnerable referrals that come into service. Again, as you'd expect, the plans are being made to restart safe and well visits at a much higher volume. But I think one of the challenges that the fire service is looking at is how it balances its prevention work with its protection work. I think given the focus, national focus now on protection work in particular, I think the fire service is unlikely to return to the same level of safe and well visits that it had done previous to the COVID pandemic. But we're yet to see, from an FRA point of view, the detail over those plans.
Okay. Safe and sound. That's all being done online at the moment, is it?
Yes, it is, Chairman. There is some detail in the report.
Yeah.
In section 4.1, which talks about the rescheduling in Easter from around Easter 2021.
Okay. I've always wondered why road traffic accidents are involved in the fire service as a sort of scoring matrix. I mean, what is that something that ever been asked before?
I think it's a good question. I think clearly road traffic accidents are not solely the preserve of the fire and rescue service, and actually the main work across our county and city is done through the Safer Roads Partnership, which brings together a range of partners, including fire and rescue, to consider different aspects of the work that needs to take place to mitigate road traffic accidents and incidents. The fire service have a leadership role on the Safer Roads Partnership from the preventative point of view, and clearly they will attend road traffic accidents. But I think you know it's a good question as to why you would see in the performance framework RTAs being part of a fire service framework, particularly.
Yeah. Okay. Where are we going with cadets?
David, do you have an answer to the cadets question? I don't have any detail on cadets, actually.
There's no mention on the report at all, so you're muted again, Dave.
Sorry, Chair. So I think in terms of the, I just want to reflect, if I can, just a second, just go back to the Prince's Trust work, if that's okay, because I think it's important that whilst Glyn was stating obviously the importance of that and the difficulty that we've had in running courses during COVID, but I think we have managed to successfully do 2 courses during the last year, which I think it's just an important point for the panel to note. And also, just if I can add a little bit on in terms of the safe and well visits. So I think it's important to note that we have continued to try and do safe and well visits, but we've been doing them differently, Chair. So we've been primarily doing safe and well visits on the phone. So we've been doing phone referrals, phone conversations. We've been making sure that we've been delivering smoke alarms, for example, to households for them to fit themselves. And then, importantly, where we have got some really very high-risk members of the community, we've still been going out to houses. But, of course, where we all have been visiting properties, we've needed to make sure that it's been done in a very COVID-secure way. So, for example, making sure that if we're doing some work in a particular room, then the occupant is in a separate room. Obviously, the appropriate PPE is worn as well. So I think it's important to know that we have still been trying to make sure that the most vulnerable members of the community have been picked up, as part of that process. And I think, just going back to your point about cadets, I guess the answer is no, but we will obviously post the pandemic. We'll look to reinstate as many of the courses as we can. So I think so it's obviously it's really important that we do that, and it's really important that we reinstate the activities that we do with young people and children. Aside from obviously the work that Safe and Sound do in terms of that remote delivery.
Yeah, thank you, David. Last point for me, and I was going to split this in two sections, but you've gone on a bit, Glyn, so I'll chip in as well. The HMIC FRS inspection for Wendy. What jumped out at me when I read it? First of all, it was very good. Obviously, I didn't expect anything different. But staff absence, item 38. Absences have increased compared with the same period in 2019. The number of days shift loss due to sickness absence between 1st of April and 30th of June, I'm assuming that's the first quarter of the year, increased by 63.1% compared with the same period in 2019. Fine. There's no more figures for the next 9 months. What's this sort of absence sickness rate been? Did it sort of peak quite high and then come down a lot, or are we still on those same sort of figures?
David, can you pick that one up?
So Chair, are you looking at general absence rates from COVID?
It says absence have increased compared with the same period. The number of days shifts lost due to sickness absence between, doesn't say COVID, it's all just sickness absence.
Yeah, I mean, I can pick that up. So I think generally, we've obviously we've tried to make sure that the workplace is as COVID safe as possible. To make sure that that all our staff that need to be on premises feel safe and they've got adequate PPE and protection, etc. And I think it's been I think we've been pretty successful really, and the level of absence has come down. It's certainly I think a success really that we've managed to keep the level of absence at a relatively low level during obviously what's been a very challenging time, within the public sector. But I think that's down really to the sort of stringent measures that have been put in place, across the entire service really, to make sure that where people are required to be on the premises, they're as safe as they can be.
Yeah, I mean, I think 63% is quite a high figure, but she doesn't mention the rest of the year, so I was just curious whether or not the figure would come down after the initial sort of peak.
Chairman, we can provide you with details actually across both fire and police if you wish to see it. To the way that sickness has varied across the year since March 2020, if you like, or since January 2020, and we also record the extent of that sickness which is COVID related. So we have, if you like, 2 lines on a graph that show overall sickness and the percentage of that which is COVID related.
Yeah, I think I'd find that interesting, Glenn, if you can sort that for me. Thank you. Okay, that's all I want to say. Does anybody else want to chip in?
Chairman. Yes, please, Chairman.
Yeah, go on, Anne. All right.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We talked about, you mentioned the safe and well-being visit, Stephen, but I just want to make sure that when we do come out of this situation that we're in with COVID, that we do advertise these safe and well visits really well, so the public out there do know what's happening, and that the fire service will do these safe and well visits, which is really, really important, especially for our elderly generation. Right, that's just a comment really, but you talk about the flats and that's been recladding in your report and what have you. How many tower blocks have we got in Staffordshire that still need this work doing on them? What's the up-to-date situation so we don't end up with the Grenfell Tower situation in Staffordshire? So that's one question. And my second question really is, it's commenting about health and well-being. I mean, I read in the report that you're working very well with the Midland Partnership Foundation Trust with the fire people and mental health. And what impact is that having on absence in the fire service? And are you really pleased that the help they're getting? Any comments from you, please, about mental health? Thank you.
David, do you want to come in on the first one of those items?
Yeah, I think, yeah, Chair, if I can come in there, I don't believe it's having any impact, and I hope I'm correct in saying that, but I don't think it is. And going back to your other question about tower blocks, I would have to, I think I'd have to come back to the panel. I don't believe that any have ACM cladding that we're working with at the moment, and obviously, our intention is to sprinkler as many of the high rise as possible, and obviously through our sprinkler project, we've been continuing the good work that's been going on across Staffordshire and obviously in Stoke-on-Trent as well. I know Stoke-on-Trent City Council have been working with us very closely to make sure that any of the high rises in Stoke, and there's a clear plan to making sure they're all sprinkled. So I think that's really important. But in terms of the exact numbers, I haven't got the exact numbers, but I say I don't believe that there are any ACM cladding that we're dealing with within Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right as well, David. That's my recollection from a discussion we had with the Chief Fire Officer some months ago. There was, Councillor, some funding available for tower blocks over a certain size, and Staffordshire was not in receipt of any of that because it doesn't have any buildings that met those requirements.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Any more questions, Anne, or are you done?
No, I'm just concerned about the staff and the mental health and what effects it might be having this COVID situation. But if they're being looked after all right, and David O'Glean and Matthew are quite happy with that situation, then I haven't got any more questions. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, just to add to Councillor Edgerton's comments, Chairman, the Fire and Rescue Service has put the welfare forefront of its thinking. And I think what the HMIC FRS report does is make clear that staff wellbeing and that the service has reacted well to the mental health challenges that arise through COVID. So I think, my reading of those paragraphs in the HMIC FRS letter is that the service has done very well in terms of its response from a people point of view.
Thank you.
Any more questions off anybody? No, I think the letter off HMIC is excellent, really, and I'd like to pass on certainly my thanks and hopefully the panel's thanks for all the good work that the Fire and Rescue Service has done over the course of the pandemic, and it's hugely it's hugely appreciated.
Yes.
Okay. Any more questions of anybody?
Stephen, can I just?
You can, Brian.
I just have a comment. I had to have a reassessment of my smoke alarms and CO alarm, and just to say what an excellent service I had from the fire service. They were there in literally a day, and it was really excellent. Just wanted to make say my thanks, really.
Yeah, this is a bit of an aside on things, but my mother-in-law had oxygen bottles in her house. She's passed away now, Shirley has, but she had oxygen bottles in her house, and we were in Birmingham looking at sort of the call handling type people in there, and they brought up her address, and it was all noted that there was a hazard in the house. There were oxygen bottles stored. Really marvellous system, the way these people work together. It really was. It's hugely impressive. Okay, thank you for that. Any more points? Any more comments?
No, thank you.
Does everybody feel they've had a good go?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Okay. Item number 5 on this, it's a bit out of order now. It's questions to PSCC by panel members. Have we had that, or does anybody else want to ask anything else?
No, Chair. Thank you.
Fine.
We went through it.
Okay, dates of future meetings and work programme. Mandy.
Thank you, Chair. You do have a meeting reserved for next Monday, the 22nd, but that was in case you vetoed any of the presets. So I'm presuming you want me to cancel that one.
Yes, please. Yeah.
And your next meeting, scheduled meeting, is the 10th of March. At the moment, you don't have any business arranged for that meeting, unless there's something that you have in mind or that the Commissioner wants to bring to the meeting.
We'll see what happens near the time, and it's still 3 weeks away, isn't it? The meeting was brought forward because of Purdah for the county elections. That's the reason. If anybody's wondering why it's happened so quickly, but yeah, we'll see what happens, man. If we get some stuff through, and that gentleman's put a question in, he's going to want answering, isn't it? So we could do that. Something else. Okay. That's great. I think that's just about done then, isn't it? Any business? Anybody want to add anything?
Is this the last time Matthew will appear for us?
Well, if we have the one on the 10th now, we'll have one more go.
Chair,
He's gone.
He's breaking up. He has got a lousy eye. He always had Matthew. It's never worked well. Matthew, you're there. You're back on, Matthew. We can see you.
Just tell him to bring the brandy and we can toast his retirement.
It's got nice ceiling lights.
Chairman, just in.
You fallen off again, Matthew. You've also muted. You're still muted.
Chairman, can you? Hello, Chairman.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just to say that if indeed we don't end up having that meeting, I'd just like to thank the panel en masse for the support to policing and to the fire service that we've enjoyed. So can I just refer back to your earlier comment as well? And until this last couple of days, I've quite enjoyed doing the Zoom calls and the Teams calls, but I have to say the last 2 days have been absolutely shocking.
Yeah, I can't. Anyway, yeah, on behalf of myself and hopefully the panel, Matthew, I'd like to thank you, if we don't see you again, for everything you've done. I know this last year you didn't want, did you? I think you got other things you were planning to do this year, so I thank you for staying on. We might still have the meeting though. We might say it all again. Okay. But if not, I'll thank you for everything. And if I can call into this meeting then, okay?
Yeah.
Thank you very much,
Thank
everybody.
you very much, Chairman. Thank you. Thank you, Matthew and Glenn.
Okay.
Yeah,
Take care,
David.
Matthew.
Yeah. Take care. Bye.
Cheers,
Bye.
Matthew.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.